now, of course, it's time to take a look at what's making the headlines. We're now being joined by Kola Alakpini, an international human rights lawyer. He joins me live here in the studio. Good morning, and it's good to have you after quite a while. Yeah, good to see you. But let's get started. Quite interesting stories on the front pages of the dailies this morning. Let's begin from this day of record. Of course, interesting stories there. The screaming headline day, of course, which is getting attention all over, is about the budget. Of course, defense gets 5.41 trillion naira. Tinubu present 58.18 trillion naira 2026 budget proposal. And if you take a look at some of the riders there, the budget is being broken down. Federal government allocate about 3.56 trillion naira to infrastructure, 3.5 trillion for education, 2.48 trillion for health, and President talks tough on budget implementation, vows to enforce fiscal discipline. So quite a lot on the front page of this day as we have it. But let's take a look at another interesting one. We'll come back to here and we will discuss this. INEC intervenes as PDP leadership crisis deepens. You also have another story there with 100 days to recapitalization deadline. 16 banks meet capital thresholds. Quite a lot there to take home today. But I think we need to also look at Punch quickly, and then we can start our conversation. If you can pull out Punch and see the similar story there. Similar story. Yeah, Punch also has the story on budget, but specifically, this one is different now. You see, U.S. visa panic disrupt dirty December. Traveler, student cancel trips to Nigeria. Fear of detention. Visa revocation heightens. And specifically on this one, we will show terrorists sponsors no mercy. That's coming from the President Tinubu himself. And budgets about 5.41 trillion naira for defense security. I think that's what I want to pick up from there before we go to the conversation. But let's get back to the conversation right now, and let's pull up this day again. Defense get 5.4 trillion naira. Of course, that's the same with the Punch newspaper. Let's talk about this. Kola, I mean, you've been following development, and some have said this is the first of its kind that a president will be, looking at over 10% of the budget, to security, 5.41 trillion naira. And 58.18 if you look at the budget as a chunk. So speak to us with this gesture that we're seeing from the president. Looks like the issue of security needs to be given a focus in 2026 ever than before.
Well, it's inevitable since we're neglected to spend on education. The children of the poor in northern Nigeria, who we've refused to educate, who we've allowed to be staying at the traffic lights, carrying bowls in their hands and begging, have now been radicalized because we didn't provide the proper education. We keep saying, Almajiri is another system of education, but the Almajiri system of education is not applicable in today's world. You can say that they're learning Quranic education, but how useful is it in today's times? So now that we've refused to spend on education, the money that should have gone into...
But spending it on security.
Well, you have to, because, the nation is at risk. Are we going to get value for money? Then, the new security chiefs and the new Minister of Defense now, they have to live up to $1 billion. But it's instrumental that the government is committing a huge 10% of our national budget into it. 5.8 trillion naira is nothing anymore when you look at the inflation costs vis-a-vis some of these equipments that they're going to buy, mostly come from abroad. We've allowed the defense DICON, Defense Industry Corporation of Nigeria, virtually produces nothing. So everything comes from abroad. Unfortunately, we had to wait till the US president got on the neck of Nigeria and ridiculed us on the international stage before we decided to do something about ourselves. I think that is the most embarrassing thing. How can some people in our country have a different set of laws applicable to them, and we have a general set of laws for every other person?
Right.
If the government of the country is saying that we should not bear arms, why are some people slinging around assault rifles and herding cattle, even in the Federal Capital Territory? We must demonstrate some measure of seriousness.
Right.
You know, if you cannot disarm villagers and disarm the farmers, and you allow herdsmen to go around, like it's disproportionate. You are already giving the upper hand to one set of people, and the government must demonstrate seriousness. And that was why POTUS, the President of the United States, came out in quotes, all guns blazing, to talk to us as if we were toddlers. I mean, it's frankly embarrassing.
There's a piece on the front page of the Punch. Maybe that's, of course, gives a kind of glimpse of hope when the president say we will show terrorists and their sponsors no mercy. I mean, that statement, how optimistic are you that the president, apart from budgeting 5.41 trillion for defense, is also saying, look, we will show them no mercy. Look at that statement.
Those are just empty words. General Buhari said that previously. In 2015, when he took his oath at Eagle Square,
right?
He said, "Oh, the military chiefs should all redeploy to Maiduguri if they're going to obey him tomorrow." Even these present military chiefs, ordinarily, they should move to the epicenter of where these things are happening. We should demonstrate that we're serious. Even if the generals are going to lead from the map room or the boardroom, the mere presence that they are in Maiduguri or in Zamfara or something, it gives the troops a morale booster. Not when you sit in your air-conditioned offices in Abuja and you're giving directives. You know, the president gives you directive and you don't obey it.
Right.
Look at how it trickles down into the polity. Should the president be repeating himself? How many times previous President Buhari said we're going to tackle this, even dismissed the mercenaries or the military advisors who we had, even when they were having a upper hand.
Right.
So there's a lot of flip-flop on policy that one becomes, disillusioned. The only traction that we've...
So in other words, you are saying the government, the president needs to match action with his words.
Yes.
Not just,
Yes,
speak.
even the president himself should relocate to Borno State. He should go to Maiduguri and spend like a week there. If the CNC is right there,
right,
what are the military chiefs going to be doing in Abuja? I mean, that's how you lead from the front. You don't just, especially in dire times like this. Look at Zelensky. His country is at war, and you can visibly see a man who is struggling.
He's in the forefront of the fight.
If he hadn't gotten the talk down and the Oval Office for coming there without wearing a suit, Zelensky was going everywhere wearing his camouflage and everything. You demonstrate seriousness by showing, not where you are. But at least now, I think, after the president of the United States has shown his touchlight on us, our president has stopped junkets around the world. He behaved in the most careless manner, as if he didn't care. There's a plane crash in India. You are quick to commiserate with them. Whereas 300 people are killed in your backyard in Benue State, and you say nothing. Look at the UN chief, the lady, the Deputy Secretary General. Lots of people were calling her out on Twitter. She's talking about what's happening in Gaza, in the Middle East, and there are killings in your backyard, in Benue, in Plateau, in Southern Kaduna, and you keep mum. Our leaders are just immune. They're immune, and we've built a structure that's made them so immune from the reality on the street.
Let's just hope that, that from 2026 with this budget, let's see what happens. And with the fact that we're hearing some comforting words from the president, we hope that he will put that to action. But let's get into some other conversation quickly. INEC intervenes as PDP leadership, still on the front page of the This Day. INEC intervenes as PDP leadership crisis deepens. Some have said INEC's intervention perhaps suggests that the crisis has crossed from party politics into what you call electoral integrity, especially regarding recognition of executive and compliance with electoral laws. But again, the question also is about alternative, because PDP and some other party, or I mean, the coalition that was just formed, you talk about the ADC and all of that, they're already speaking up how they can become an alternative to APC. But don't forget that, again, we have about, 26 states now that belongs to APC in the event of the defection, the recent defection from PDP, the governors defecting from PDP and all of that. Can we truly say the PDP, the mighty, or one of the biggest, or I say the biggest political parties yesteryears, is still an alternative?
Well, parties come and go, and it all depends on how you connect to the people.
Yeah.
I'm a bit reluctant to observe or to see that INEC is wading into intra-party affairs. And that is why the courts have always maintained when intra-party affairs are brought to the court refuses to adjudicate on them and says, these are intra-party affairs, go and sort out your affairs. INEC has they behave like an amoeba. It's very formless. And that is the trust deficit which they possess now with the polity, especially with the horrible sham that happened under the previous head of INEC. It dashed, it dashed the hopes,
Professor Yakubu.
It dashed the hopes of people. A lot of people were expecting him to actionize what he had said, or we're going to use beavers. And now the National Assembly is now going to that and say, hey, we really need to put these things into law if we wanted to act. So sometimes INEC even behaves as if he's a litigant. You see some of the cases that go to court.
Party to
but INEC is supposed to be a bystander and regulator. But what I don't understand what INEC is regulating. They let the parties, sort out themselves and supervise the elections if you can, and decide on which party has followed the procedure. What's so difficult there? But on the other hand, the argument could also be that INEC is a regulator and is stepping in, is making sure that things don't go out of hand. But the bottom line is, whatever INEC touches goes bad.
Perhaps the new chairman, Amokpito, has a lot of work to do ahead of 2027 general election, because he came in with a lot of enthusiasm, with a lot of promise, and hope, and giving Nigerian hope that the 2027 election will be, devoid of, contentions, or maybe,
it needs to win the trust. Professor Amokpito needs to win the trust of the country. His predecessor did a bad job, and INEC is limping as far as trust is concerned.
So he has a lot of
people don't trust INEC. That's just the bottom line.
Let's quickly move now. Pull up a Punch and see what a Punch is talking about. A U.S. visa panic disrupt dirty December. What you call dirty December here in this part of the world, of course, is about having a kind of celebration of December that is laced with spending. Travelers, students cancel trips to Nigeria, fear of detention, visa. Is also another issue. Speak to this because some people have said, look, how vulnerable can Nigeria be, especially in the face of the ban? Nigeria with other countries, African countries, 20 of them, but it's unfortunate Nigeria is part of it. Speak to us, what is the impact of these on Nigeria?
The impact is damaging, hugely damaging. So all visas to the United States have now been frozen. If you're a visitor, B1, B2, you're going for medical tourism, you're going to school, everything is frozen. If you've had visas before, they wouldn't stop you. You can go. But new visas are not being treated, except in very exceptional cases. At embassy level, they used to be able to have the discretion to use it, but everything has to go to Washington now, and they have to approve and all. I would have preferred that there was some sort of segregation, and the people targeted are politically exposed folks, people who got us into this mess. those are the ones that the United States needs to target with visa bans, them and their immediate families. And the United States has the dossier. It shouldn't be a blanket hit on everyone.
Right.
We know the political actors that got us to where we are. The United States has a huge amount of resources on information at their fingertip. Not just the United States, the big five, the core white countries, English speaking, that is Canada, the United States, Britain, New Zealand, and Australia. They call them the Five Eyes. Once you get into trouble with one of those five countries, they share information, and you're unlikely to get off the hook with the other. So a refusal from one most likely will be a refusal from the others, except they decide to delve deeper. And so what we need to do is to just focus on the bad political actors that got us into this. If you've been aiding what they call the Christian genocide, for instance, you should automatically go on that list. If you've been involved in election manipulation, looting, etc., those are the major ones. So that's just the challenge that I have. We have a conference in DC in February, and some of my lawyers, one or two, would have had to go. So this has affected quite a number of people. What about students who have no masala, so to speak, with the government, and now they're now, they can't travel through no fault of them.
Some cannot even come back home now.
No, but you can't come back because that's the problem. Everything is very dicey. If you're not a dual resident, a dual citizen, or you have a permanent residency, stay where you are until the coast is clear. And the United States government or any government at all can decide who they issue their visas to or not. The bigger picture is that we're messed up. And we're paying the price for it.
And we need to clear the mess.
We need to clear the mess.
As soon as possible.
Yes. There's so many instances. The current administration, for instance, almost 2 years into the administration's life, we don't have an ambassador in Washington. We don't have a high commissioner in London.
Right.
It simply means that the president is absent because the ambassador is your representative.
Yes. Let's quickly get to look at some other papers before we, shut down here. Let's take a look at The Guardian. Let's pull up The Guardian if you can. 13 days to expiration. Tinubu seeks to cut 2025 budget by over 6 trillion naira. Of course, some have said the development exposes Nigeria's recurring challenge of unrealistic budgeting and weak implementation cycles, raising questions about planning, discipline, and legislative oversight. But this is not where we're going. Let's talk about this particular story, specifically capital punishment, not solution to kidnapping banditry. That's coming from former UN envoy, which insists that capital punishment should not be the way out. Speak to us about from the rate at which the country is witnessing kidnapping, killings, and all of that. Some have suggested, look, we need to look at capital punishment for these offenses, criminal offenses. But some have said, no, this is not the way out. How do you address this?
You want my personal opinion?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
I don't support capital punishment. My antecedents. I'm a human rights lawyer.
Of course, you're a human rights lawyer. So
I believe that life. I believe that life is sacred. Yes. I also hinge this on two things.
Yes. Okay.
And I go back to the Buhari regime again. It was maybe the Buhari military regime or the IBB regime. I can't remember very well. It's one of them. There were 3 people who were arrested for drug offenses. One was Alhaji Lawal Ojuolakpe. I think there was Bartholomew Howo and Bernardo Gidingbe. Those were the 3 gentlemen. It was 1985. It was 1985,
right?
I think. And drug offenses were not punishable by death as of the time when the alleged offenses were committed. But the military government refuses to listen to anyone, and they just promulgated a decree and went ahead and executed these people for an offense which did not carry the death penalty. So we literally killed someone who did not, commit an offense that carried death penalty. That's one. There's also one very famous case from the Oyo State High Court or something. And the matter was, had gone on appeal, and they had not allowed the appeal process to have gone through the whole steps. And we just executed this person. I think it was an armed robbery case or something. And science keeps proving. It's because we don't rely on a lot of science in our part of the world. DNA, forensics, and everything. Now showing evidence that people could have been wrongly convicted. You hear people have spent like 25 years on death row in America, or 30 years, and they're released because new evidence shows that they didn't commit the offenses, or the investigators suppressed information. These are the challenges. So when in doubt, the legal system says you have to set, even if 10 people free, if once you're in doubt, then you convict an innocent man. And that's my challenge. Okay. Once you've put someone to death, there's no coming back again.
We have to look at some other front pages. And before we go, quickly, as we pull up, the Vanguard, of course, still similar story there. Security is Tinubu's priority in 58.18 trillion 2026 budget. That's one. Let's also pull up, if you can pull up some African headlines now. Let's pull up Daily Graphic. Mahama calls for United African Front on reparative justice. If you look at it there, that's one. But let's quickly go international now. Some international headline says AU agrees 90 billion euros loan to Ukraine as frozen Russian asset plan. Let's pull up FT Weekend. And this speaks about the fact that, is Europe underwriting a long war, without a clear exit plan? That's a big story there. As we wrap up on this note, speak to us 90 billion, because what we're looking at is...
I was going to say that. So this is international law and politics at its very best.
Yes.
So the Western world has seized Russian assets, right? They've frozen them. And ordinarily, they could have applied those funds to Ukraine and say, take these funds and rebuild your country. But the elephant in the room is that Russia has a nuclear weapon. So who's going to bail the cat? How are you going to spend someone's money? The person that owns a nuclear weapon, one of the 5 great powers in the world. This is the challenge. So international politics and law itself recognizes that you cannot move as you wish to move, because Russia has veto power anyway at the Security Council. So these are the 5 powers that rule the world: Russia, China, Great Britain, France, USA. So that's the problem. There's money kept, but you dare not spend Putin's money. Yeah, because you don't know what he's going to come up with next. And how dare you spend his money if you...
I think they're finding an alternative now.
Yeah, they will find an alternative. They should find an alternative. But if Putin says, don't touch my money, if you touch it, there will be consequences. Nobody is going to touch the money. And that is the leverage having a nuclear weapon gives you. All the shenanigans that Russia has done has only been tolerated because it's a nuclear power. If it's another country, they will have launched another Operation Desert Storm or Operation Winter Arrives or something.
Well, I think a good place to leave it. Thank you so much. Of course, Kola Alakbeni is an international human rights lawyer. It's good to have you back on the show. Well, that's all we have time for here on Daybreak. I am Frank Omalapa, and it's goodbye from me. Please keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Bye-bye for now.